Welcome to my YouTube channel. If you find it interesting, please give me a like and a sub. Wish you a nice day. Here is the short story Daughter of Death. This is a series of short stories. Part 1. Don't ruin it when it's fun. I am the daughter of death. Anyone I call out will never see the sun the next day. While having fun in the human world, I was kidnapped to northern Myanmar. After that, they cried and wanted to take me back. Why should I go back? This place is full of talented people. The conversation is easy to listen to. I like it very much. I don't want to go anywhere. Grandma, I haven't eaten anything all day. Can you be so kind as to buy me a meal? I looked at the old lady in front of me and immediately saw the dark soul beneath her gentle appearance. Interesting. I raised my eyebrows and took her hand. What do you want to eat? I'll take you there. The old lady looked happy. No need to spend money, just go to the small noodle shop in front. I was dragged to the noodle shop by her. The closer I got, the more the smell of blood rushed into my nose. When I saw that I was about a meter away from the noodle shop, I stopped. Or I'll give you money and you can go in and eat by yourself. The old lady immediately became impatient and stopped pretending. She pushed me forward, causing me to stagger. At the same time, a few strong men opened the door and quickly pulled me in. My nose and mouth were covered with a towel soaked in anesthetic. But they didn't know that this had no effect on me. Because I wasn't human. I pretended to be unconscious and they took me to a small room and threw me into the cage. When the sound of the lock being unlocked rang out, I slowly opened my eyes and looked around. A short man, not hiding his lewd gaze, looked me up and down and laughed obscenely, saying, "It's been a long time since I've met such a good girl. You look like a fairy. Mrs. Zhang did a good job this time." Mrs. Zhang chuckled, glanced at me in the cage, rubbed her hands and said, "Granddaughter, don't blame this old woman, I'm just trying to support my family. If you behave well, you'll suffer less." I smiled slightly, met Mrs. Zhang's eyes, and asked, "What's your name, Mrs. Zhang?" After receiving Mrs. Zhang's answer, I stared into her eyes, her black pupils like a pool of cold, unfathomable water. "I advise you to go back early and take care of your funeral. You won't see the sun tomorrow." Everyone laughed and didn't take my words seriously. Mrs. Zhang even kicked the cage hard and said, "Granddaughter, you still dare to play tricks on this old lady? You're still too young." I smiled slightly, looked at the strong man behind her, and asked, "Excuse me, big brother, what's your name?" The big man licked his lips and said, "What, you also want to play tricks in front of me? I thought you were tired of living. If you couldn't sell for a good price, I would have done you a long time ago." After saying that, a group of people left arrogantly, and the room returned to darkness. I squinted my eyes and quietly enjoyed it all. Darkness, this was the environment I was most familiar with. Because I came from darkness. Anyone whose name I called was not far from death. There was a sobbing sound in the room, and I suddenly realized that there were young girls locked up around me. One girl timidly said to me, "Hello, my name is Shaowen. I want to know, will Mrs. Zhang really die tomorrow?" I closed my eyes and slept, and said listlessly, "You will know tomorrow." The next day, while everyone was still sleeping, the door was kicked open. The muscular man from yesterday rushed in with a group of people and walked straight to me. "You bastard, you're right. Mrs. Zhang was hit by a truck early in the morning and died on the spot. But I still don't believe your devilish words. Let me tell you, my name is Wang Hu. If you have the ability, then try to kill me." I calmly looked at Wang Hu, as if I was looking at a child who was deliberately causing trouble. "I've never seen such a special request. In that case, I will satisfy you. Wang Hu, today you will be burned alive to death." Wang Hu looked at me with a fierce expression, his hands tightly gripping the bars. "If I don't die today, I'll kill you, you bitch." After saying that, Wang Hu's underlings threw a bowl of rice in front of each cage, then angrily left with their boss. I watched the girls in the room with interest. Most of them looked desperate, some gritted their teeth and cursed at Mrs. Zhang. As for Xiaoan, the curious girl from yesterday, she shared half of her meager meal with the underage girl next to her. She looked at her with a very gentle gaze. I followed her example and gave my portion to the girl next to me. Everyone passed the food around and shared it with each other, and in the end everyone was full. After finishing eating, everyone started to talk about how they had been tricked. Some people had been raised by their grandmothers since they were young, and couldn't stand seeing old ladies suffer, so they were taken advantage of and tricked here. Some people had just received a university admission letter, and were tricked and taken away on the way to register by Mrs. Zhang. There were even people who already had fiancés, were about to get married, and were lured to find a job and then tricked here. Each person told their story. Only Xiaoan and I had not yet told ours. My name is Haila. I had just opened my mouth when the door was opened. But this time it wasn't kicked, it was gently opened. The person who came wasn't Wang Hu, but Wang Hu's underlings. They opened my cage respectfully. Little ancestor, who are you? Why are you speaking so forcefully? The boss was drunk and driving last night. I don't know why the car exploded, he was burned alive. I stood up, moved my limbs, looked around, and said, I am a rather strange person. Since I was young, I have said that whoever dies will die. The people around me looked at me with fear, as if I were a monster. Ancestors, please go away, please don't mind us petty people. Just treat us as scum and forget about us. The people who followed me knelt down in front of me and bowed, some were so scared that they peed their pants. I tilted my head and thought, asking, who kidnapped me that day? Their faces were pale, they knelt down on the ground and bowed. Seeing their heads bleeding, I was tired of messing with them. I turned my face to the person who was kneeling down and asked, where are you planning to sell me? The man said, trembling, Myanmar, northern Myanmar. I nodded and said, okay, then release the girls in this cage. I will go with you to northern Myanmar. The man burst into tears and said, ancestors, we will let these people go. Please don't come with us, okay? I frowned and said, I'm telling you, I want to be happy. If I'm not happy, you will die. The man burst into tears. He didn't care that his pants were soaked. He stood up and released the girls in the cage one by one. Xiaoan walked over, gently held my hand, and asked, Haila, can you go to northern Myanmar with me? I held her hand and said, okay. Xiaoan's eyes widened and she asked, aren't you going to ask me why? I smiled and said nothing. From the moment I entered this room, I could smell the blood on Xiaoan. But unlike Mrs. Zheng and Wang Hu, Xiaoan's soul was extremely pure, even emitting a golden light. This meant that she was a person of great merit. In this world, who was stained with blood but had merit? The answer goes without saying. Xiaoan and I boarded the boat to northern Myanmar. Happy land, here I come. When I stood on the land of northern Myanmar, the first thing that hit me was the atmosphere of corruption, gloom, and death. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. Ha! Ha! I felt refreshed again. Wang Hu's men trembled as they walked in front of me and said, ancestors, next there is a person named Li Wu who will come to pick up the goods. If nothing happens, we will leave, you can make the transaction yourself. We don't need the money. You keep it all. From now on, we will reform. The group of people were afraid that if they stayed any longer they would die, so they turned around and boarded the boat and ran away. Xiaoan and I sighed and stood there waiting for Li Wu to pick up the goods. Before long, a fat man wearing a short-sleeved leopard print shirt and a large gold necklace came to the pier. They walked around the pier twice, occasionally staring at Xiaoan and me with malicious eyes. Unable to wait any longer, I grabbed his sleeve and asked, "Fatty, are you Li Wu here to pick up the goods?" "Yes." He looked at me blankly. "Are you Wang Hu's new junior? I thought you were the goods." I nodded and said, "That's right, I am the goods this time." Shaoan immediately stood up and said, "Me too." Li Wu rolled his eyes and said, "Not bad, I've been in this business for so many years, this is the first time I've met a goods person who sells himself. Let's go." Li Wu opened the back door of the truck, and Shaoan and I stepped in. As soon as we entered, we saw many young girls in the dark space. There were also some very handsome young men. Except for Shaoan and me, everyone's hands and feet were tied. Shaoan held my hand tightly and said, "Hai La, let's let them go." I looked around and asked, "Do you dare to jump out of the truck?" Some timidly said yes, while the rest remained silent. I put my hand on the cold door and released a little strength. Before long, a large part of the car door was corroded. Shaoan walked over and pushed hard, and the door opened. Light shone in, and everyone in the car revealed a look of surprise. Shaoan comforted everyone, "Right now, the car is heading towards the grasslands, the speed is not fast, with the grass as a cushion, you won't be too badly injured." A few brave boys jumped first, rolling on the ground and falling onto the nearby grass. The girls hesitated, and finally closed their eyes and jumped down. Waiting for the car to be empty, Shaoan looked at me with increasingly complicated eyes, and asked, "Hai La, where did these abilities come from?" I laughed and said, "If I say I'm not human, will you take me to the research institute?" "No," Shaoan immediately said, "we are friends." I didn't doubt Shaoan at all. Because when she said this, her soul was shining brightly. When we arrived, Li Wu was furious when he saw the broken door and empty car. He walked over and grabbed my neck and shouted, "You stinking bitch." I kicked him away in disgust, and felt disgusted that I had left the tip of my shoe covered in dust. "You haven't paid me and Shaoan yet, so those people should consider it as debt relief. Come on, fatty, stop lying there like a dead pig. Let's go." I clapped my hands and held Shaoan's hand as we entered the club. Li Wu couldn't beat me, so he could only curse and lead me to a heavily made-up woman who said, "Sister Hua, there are only 2 of them this time, but the quality is very good." Sister Hua looked me up and down with satisfaction. Li Wu flattered, "Especially this one, she's like a fairy, with a hot temper, that person will definitely like her." I didn't know who that person they were talking about was, but I was led by them to continue. Sister Hua told us to wash our faces, then handed us 2 sets of clothes. Shaoan's was a pure white silk dress without any stains, while mine was a black leather dress. I frowned. My outfit was fine, but Shaoan's was a bit revealing. I held Sister Hua's hand, pouted at Shaoan, and said, "Change into something else for her." Sister Hua snorted disdainfully, pushed my hand away, and said, "Who do you think you are? It's not your place to talk here. Furthermore, do you think you came here to make us worship your ancestors? Be realistic, you're just toys to serve some big shots. With such a withered figure, how can you sell it for a good price if you don't dress a little more revealingly?" TSK, my fists were stiff again. I stared at Sister Hua and said, "I've already asked clearly, your real name is Wang Tui Hoa, right? Wang Tsue Hua, you will die in the bed of some important person within half an hour." Li Wu pointed at my nose and scolded, "You bitch, you dare to curse Sister Hua, I think you are tired of living." While scolding, he ordered Sister Hua's men to beat me. "You guys teach this little girl a lesson so she will know some manners." Sister Hua raised her hand to stop her men, then stepped forward and grabbed my chin, saying, "This old lady has had a hard life since she was young, whoever touches this old lady will die." Before she could finish, a naked girl with wounds all over her body ran in. "Sister Hua, the big brother I am serving is drunk and crazy, holding a gun and shooting several young girls to death, come and see." Sister Hua let go of her hand and said, "I will deal with you when we get back." After saying that, Sister Hua hurriedly left with the others. Within half an hour, the entire club was in a panic. Because Sister Hua really died in that big brother's bed. Not long after, another girl sent another white dress. After putting it down, she staggered away, not daring to stay any longer. Other people passed by our room, some accidentally made eye contact with me and immediately turned away as if they had seen a ghost. I walked over, looked at the ordinary cloth dress with satisfaction, gave it to Shaoan and said, "You will look very cool wearing it." Shaoan looked at me worriedly and asked, "Are we really going to be sold to that person?" I held her hand tightly and said, "Don't worry, with me here, you will be fine." Moreover, I was really looking forward to meeting that person. The big shots in northern Myanmar must have a lot of unjust debts. Then their souls must be delicious. Everyone was afraid of me like a monster, except for Li Wu, the big idiot who was still screaming in front of me. On the day of the auction, he ordered his men to put Shaoan and me in 2 transparent crystal boxes, and place them on 2 exhibition stands with lights shining on them. Shaoan was like a pure and flawless angel. My faint smile was hidden in the darkness, like a little devil watching them. "Everyone, please take a look." Although we only have 2 items this time, they are all of the highest quality. The people below saw Shaoan, their faces were all excited, eager to destroy. But when they looked at me, they fell silent. Someone started whispering, "This outfit is very suitable for that person's taste. Who dares to choose this girl? Who dares to compete with that person for her? It's really life-threatening. This Li Wu is really a good pleaser, choosing the right item for that person. What a pity, this fairy-like appearance, falling into that person's hands. I wonder if he can survive the night." I languidly sat down in the crystal box, listening to their whispers. That person they were talking about sounded like an interesting character. Before I could think, a ray of light shone on my crystal box, and Li Wu began to bid. No one dared to bid. As soon as everyone fell silent, the smile on Li Wu's face grew larger and larger. Until someone said, "I want this person." The smile on Li Wu's face almost turned into flattery. Everyone looked towards the source of the sound. The crowd called out one after another, "Old Shao." I watched with interest as the tall man walked towards me step by step. Unlike the dark souls of the others, this man's soul was so dim that it was about to disappear. This showed that his humanity was about to be destroyed. I slowly stood up from the crystal box, jumped up and fell into his arms. He looked at me, smiled brightly and said, "How interesting." I chuckled and said, "Just wait and see, you are very interesting. If these ants consider him the king of northern Myanmar, then I will use this king to destroy the entire northern Myanmar. I want to seek justice for the souls on this land." Boss Shao hugged me and turned to leave, but I pulled his sleeve. I pointed at Shaoan and said, "I want to take her with me." Boss Shao looked at Shaoan inquiringly, then turned to me and smiled lightly, "Okay, whatever you want." His tone was like he was pampering a naughty kitten. I secretly laughed in my heart, not knowing who was the owner of whom. I snuggled into Boss Shao's chest, smiled slightly, and said softly, "Li Wu, in 20 minutes you will die from a sharp weapon cutting your throat." Boss Shao lowered his head to look at me and asked, "Little treasure, what are you mumbling about?" I raised my head, smiled innocently at him, and said, "It's nothing, I was thinking that your chest muscles must be very well trained." These words clearly pleased him, and he hugged me tighter. "Looks like I've found a treasure." Boss Shao had to leave for the time being, so he ordered his men to take Shaoan and me back. Shaoan hugged my arm tightly, her body trembling slightly. She pretended to be scared, then hugged me, leaned close to my ear, and whispered so that no one could hear, "Hyla, you must be careful with this Shao. No matter how close we are, no one knows his real name or hometown. He controls more than half of the blood vessels of northern Myanmar. His mind is cunning, his methods are extremely cruel and vicious. If we are not careful, I am afraid we will not be able to survive. I patted her on the back to show that I understood. After that, we sat quietly in the car and did not speak again. The destination was an ancient and magnificent underground tunnel. The doorposts were made of gold mixed with brass. I touched the bricks and saw the blood and tears left behind by countless ghosts. Boss Zhao's men held 2 tubes of medicine and looked at Shaoan and me, smiling sinisterly. Boss ordered that no matter who it is, they must be injected before entering. I looked relaxed. Before he could finish speaking, I excitedly took the tube of medicine and injected myself. I turned around, saw Shaoan's rebellious expression, and comforted her. Don't worry, let me inject you, it will be fine. I took advantage of my blind spot, put my hand on Shaoan's arm, and injected all the medicine into my finger. Those men didn't see anything unusual, so they let us in right away. As soon as we reached the corner, Shaoan immediately hugged me, checked my body, and asked, "Hi La, are you okay?" I replied softly, "Don't worry, I'm fine." Shaoan showed a fierce expression to me for the first time, and said, "Do you know what that thing is?" "You don't know, and you injected yourself twice?" I spread my arms and said, "I don't know. Anyway, my constitution is very special, I can't absorb these things at all. Just now when I entered the door, I farted and sprayed out all the medicine." Only then did Shaoan breathe a sigh of relief, but he still glared at me angrily. Shaoan was randomly placed in a small room, while I was led to a luxuriously decorated room. As soon as I entered, there was a lazy dog lying inside. Its fur was smooth and shiny, and one could tell at a glance that it was not doing badly. When it saw me enter, the dog bared its teeth at me fiercely. I smiled at the person who led me in and said, "This little dog's teeth look quite nice." The subordinate looked at me, his mouth twitching, his eyes widening as he said, "This is not a dog, this is a wolf tamed by the boss, its name is Barton. The boss said to let you play with it for a while waiting for the boss to return. Barton is used to eating meat, so be careful." I looked closely at the subordinate who brought me in. This person was very tall and had a deep scar at the corner of his eye. Although his eyes were fierce, his soul was shining with a golden light of merit. "Just like Shaoan, my name is Adong, if you need anything here, you can come find me." I expectedly asked, "Dong, do you know Boss Zhao's real name?" As long as I knew the real name of the Zhao family, I could kill him in a flash. Dong shook his head and said, "I'm afraid that no one in northern Myanmar knows about it except Boss Zhao himself." I looked disappointed and said, "You just get on with it, I can take care of myself." Dong had only taken 2 steps when he turned back and said to me, "Barton won't attack anyone without Boss Zhao's orders. As long as you stay where you are and don't approach Barton, you can hold out until Boss Zhao returns." I obediently replied, "Don't worry, I'll be fine." As soon as Dong left, I poured a cup of water and threw it at Barton. Barton was startled, walking slowly towards me, growling non-stop. I went forward and slapped him on the head before retreating. This place was truly a wonderful place, even the wolf had many sins. Barton was furious, baring his teeth and charging at me, staring at me and growling continuously. I stood there motionless, and when he ran towards me to knock me down, I reached out and grabbed his head and opened his mouth. Barton drooled in humiliation, revealing a pair of fangs. What a wonderful pair of fangs! I smiled with satisfaction. When Boss Zhao opened the door, he saw me squatting on the ground and grinding my teeth. Those were Barton's fangs. Barton had his fangs pulled out by me, and he was curled up in the corner, groaning and angry. When the subordinates saw the scene in the room, they were all silent. Boss Zhao's face didn't have any big expressions, and it took him a long time to get a few words out from between his teeth. Good, very good. He took a deep breath, grabbed my collar, and dragged me out of the room, calling Shaoan out as well. I broke free from his restraint and ran over to grab Shaoan's hand. Her hair was a little messy, something must have happened. However, her clothes were neat and her condition wasn't serious. Boss Xiao brought us to the main hall, and his men dragged over a bald man, covered in blood. As soon as the bald man saw Boss Xiao, he knelt down on the ground and kept kowtowing, begging, "I won't dare anymore. Please, boss, please spare my life. I've been following you for many years, please spare my life." Boss Xiao didn't even bother to look at the bald man, indifferently taking out a knife. He turned the knife in his hand, lazily looking up at me and saying, "Baby, use this knife to cut off his right hand." I caught the knife he threw, flicked it lightly and said, "This knife of yours isn't sharp enough, use my newly sharpened wolf fang." A trace of bloodthirsty excitement appeared on my face. I took Barton's shiny fang, and approached the bald man. "Miss, please let me go, please."
Ah!
I stabbed the wolf fang into the bald man's wrist and used all my strength to cut off his hand. The scene was horrifying. Blood splattered on my face and combined with my innocent smile. Everyone was stunned. Except Boss Xiao. A loud laugh suddenly echoed in the hall. Boss Xiao looked at me and evaluated me, praised me for doing well, and asked me what kind of reward I wanted. I thought for a while, but it seemed like I didn't want anything, so I turned to ask Shaoan. Shaoan said, "I want to go sightseeing here." Boss Xiao agreed. Shaoan's suggestion was very good, it helped me see all the crimes in this dungeon. I saw many girls dressed like dolls. Their eyes were equally desperate and numb, and they had lost their will to live. I saw fresh teenagers. They would be given away to rich businessmen. Like the girls, they were tools for Boss Xiao to negotiate business. I also witnessed many young men being imprisoned, and when the time came, their organs would be sold all over the world. I also saw old people growing poppies in their gardens, their faces filled with joy and excitement, passionately taking care of the treasures in their hands. Finally, Boss Xiao took us to visit the most terrifying place. He called it the Death Chamber. When we entered, there was a bloody man hanging on a cross. It took me a while to confirm that it was a man. This man had no flesh on his body, his whole body was covered in blood. There were many iron torture instruments hanging around, and they were used on this man one after another every day. Shaoan held my hand tightly, the corners of his eyes instantly reddened. This guy has been through life and death with me, I consider him a brother. I didn't expect him to be a policeman, ruining my important chain of transactions. Elder Xiao revealed a complicated expression, both cruel and nostalgic. His subordinate took out a glass of chilly water and splashed it on the bloody man.
Ah!
The man regained consciousness for a moment, looking at us with disdain. His gaze stopped on Shaoan and quickly left. He made a vague sound and I discovered that his tongue had been cut off. I was stunned by the man's dazzling light of merit. The golden light in his soul was stronger than Shaoan, Adong, and many people I had met. Many years ago, I had also seen a bloody person with a brilliant golden light like this. Almost the same scene. I couldn't remember her name. I only remembered that it was a woman with the surname Liu, with short hair. Boss Xiao told me to take a shower and have dinner with him. I was afraid that someone would hurt Shaoan, so I hugged her tightly and refused to let go. Boss Xiao smiled and said that I also needed someone to play with, so let Shaoan follow me. After going to the bathroom and confirming that there were no cameras here, Shaoan gritted her teeth, knelt down in front of me and said, "Hai La, I beg you to help me." I helped Shaoan stand up and told her to speak slowly. Shaoan held back her tears and said, "The person in the execution room is my brother." I confirmed what I was thinking and immediately asked, "You want to save him?" "No, I just want you to help him get free. Shaoan wiped the tears from her face. I'm very familiar with the look in his eyes just now. Back in the police academy, we made an oath to sacrifice everything to protect the people. You said that if you fell into the hands of criminals, you would rather die than implicate everyone. Shaoan sniffled and looked at me resolutely. Hai La, his real name is Zhang Huaiyi. And my name is Zhang Huayan. If one day I fall into the hands of that Shao guy, I hope you can help me get free. I gently dipped my foamy hands into the warm water. They were light, white, and fragile. Zhang Huaiyi will die in his sleep within a minute. That is the beautiful dream he has always wanted. The bubble burst. Shaoan buried her head in the water, letting her salty tears mix with the warm water. There was a very large dining table in the middle of the room. Elder Shao patted the chair beside him and said, "Little treasure, come sit here." Barton snuggled up under Elder Zhao's feet. The thing he was chewing on looked a little familiar. When I got closer, I realized it was the bald man's hand. Seeing me approaching, Barton curled up and quietly lay away. I didn't sit on the chair next to Elder Shao, but instead crawled into his arms. Elder Shao raised his eyebrows and used one hand to support me so I wouldn't fall. I played with the exquisite necklace around his neck for a while, pinching his chin hard, like a little lion baring its fangs and claws, and asked, "Which woman gave you this necklace?" Elder Shao chuckled and said, "Baby, are you even jealous of my mother?" I took a sip of the red wine from his hand. Elder Shao stared at me for a while, a little more affection in his eyes. "When I first heard what happened to you at Li Wu's place, I thought you were a police officer." He stroked my silky hair. "Now that we're close, I see you as a thief. Stealing my heart." I pouted in his arms. "TSK, I'm too old to play this kind of seduction game. However, he has a very nice body. More beautiful than the male models I've spent money on before. In all, I didn't lose out. Boss Shao trusted me more and more and started taking me to different events. They would give me medicine on time every day and watch me get my injections. I farted loudly in front of them. Shaoan's injections were handled by a dong. I saw the quick glances between the two of them. I knew that Shaoan would be fine. I didn't understand the police. I could only tell Shaoan everything I saw and heard. Boss Shao liked me very much, but he didn't like Shaoan. But as long as I was here, no one could hurt her. The days passed by. I was with Boss Shao for a whole year. This broke the records of all the women around him. He gave me a diamond ring the size of a pigeon egg and everyone started calling me sister-in-law. I don't even know when it started, but he said he wanted me to give birth to a child for him. I thought he was just joking, but he actually started planning. He stopped giving me injections, took good care of my health, and took me on a trip around the world. He even said he would throw me a grand wedding. However, it was all an illusion when the bunker siren went off. Based on the clues provided by Shaoan, the police finally broke up a large chain of transactions by Boss Shao. They surrounded the place and prepared to arrest everyone, including Boss Shao. But the bunker was sturdy, and there were too many innocent people, so they couldn't attack it. On the other hand, Boss Shao had prepared a helicopter and could escape at any time. But before leaving, he wanted to humiliate Shaoan in front of all the police and trample on their dignity. As soon as I ran to the roof of the bunker, I saw Boss Shao's men grab Shaoan's hair, kick her, and slam her head into the ground. There was already a large pool of blood on the ground. A dong rushed forward, trying to restrain Boss Shao, but was shot in the calf. This was a blind spot, and the sniper couldn't see. Boss Shao hugged me tightly in his arms. "Baby, I'll settle the score with you later. But you have to see clearly now, we're the same kind of people. Stay with me and watch these two policemen tortured to death." Shaoan saw me appear, suppressed her pain and shouted loudly, "Hai La, don't forget what you told me, my name is Zhang Huaiyan." Seeing this scene, I only felt extremely upset. "Shut up. If I'm not happy, I will kill someone." "Zhang Huaiyan. Listen, you are not allowed to die, you have to live well for me." I looked at Boss Xiao, coldly smiled and said, "Your name is Xiao Sun, right? Xiao Sun will be shot dead by the police immediately." As soon as I finished speaking, a bullet whizzed past my ear. The man who was holding me fell to the ground, his eyes wide open in unwillingness. He didn't even know until death that he had looked down on me. The necklace his mother had given him had killed him. All the lines on the necklace were put together, spelling out the word Sun in Maya. Taking advantage of Xiao Sun's death, the police attacked. I kicked each of Xiao Sun's subordinates who were attacking me off the rooftop. Shaoan tried his best to restrain the subordinate behind him. As for Adong, he fainted due to blood loss. "That's right, how could I forget you?" I smiled gently at Barton, who was trembling in the corner. The next second, he flew into the air and formed a beautiful arc. With me here, no criminal could escape. Even wolves couldn't escape. All the innocent people in the tunnel were rescued. They hugged each other and cried. The boys and girls looked at the sunlight in a daze, crying and laughing in front of everyone. The rescued young people were so happy that they cried because they didn't die in this great disaster. Some people just wanted to go to Myanmar to find a job. Some were angry with their families, hearing that Myanmar was full of gold, and wanted to become rich. Some people just went to meet someone they met online, but when they arrived, they couldn't find any beautiful women, only to be taken away. However, after this experience, they realized that having a healthy body was better than anything else. The old people who were growing poppies, when they saw the poppies they had carefully tended being burned by the police, they desperately fought with the police, completely forgetting that they had been taken here. Seeing that the police's earnest advice was ineffective, I threw them all into the police car. Let them go to the rehabilitation center. Shaoan returned with her brother's ashes. Before leaving, Shaoan asked me if I wanted to go with her, but I refused. Although Xiao Sun's malignant tumor had been eradicated, this land in northern Myanmar was still filled with strong resentment. Sins were never ending here. And where there were sins, there was me, Hai La. I traveled all over northern Myanmar. Everywhere I went, a criminal gang would be uprooted. Afterwards, the remaining people would cry and beg me, asking what they had to do to make me leave. I looked confused and said, "Go? Where? Why should I go?" I couldn't go, I wouldn't go in this lifetime. I still couldn't control my temper, so I could only stay in this world. Besides, Myanmar was like home. This place was full of talented people, and the conversation was easy to listen to. I liked it very much, and didn't want to go anywhere. The only thing that made me sad was that Shaoan would come to visit me whenever she had nothing to do. This time she became a dancer, the next time she became the goddaughter of some gang leader, and another time she changed her identity to a new character. It made me think for a long time about what to call her every time we met. She said she mainly came to see me and do some small tasks along the way. Sometimes I didn't see her for months at a time, making me very worried about whether something had happened to her. I was very upset. And every time I was upset, I wanted to kill someone. So the places in northern Myanmar began to resound with the continuous and incessant screams of criminals. Was it the destruction or the end of the immoral people? Actually, the main reason why the gangs in northern Myanmar were almost extinct was because of a human girl who often changed her identity. End of Part 1. Part 2, don't ruin the werewolf game. I was forced to participate in a real-life werewolf murder. Little Green Tea pretended to be pitiful during the day, but at night she wanted to stab me with a knife. I smiled and pulled her cold wolf comrade out from under the bed. A family must stay together. Where is this? The people lying on the ground woke up one by one, without exception. They all looked confused. I clapped my hands and stood up, pointing at the TV. Stop screaming, don't you guys know how to read the instructions? Everyone looked at the lowly dancing on the TV. Hello everyone here, you are honored to participate in the real-life werewolf extermination. This is our VIP's special New Year's program. The rules of the game are, you must perform well, the winner will receive a reward of 100 million from our VIP. Now please go to the machine to confirm your identity. The password is your date of birth. When they heard this ridiculous rule, everyone objected in unison. But when they heard the prize was 100 million, many people fell silent. Use your life to win 100 million. Do you want this chance? Someone suggested finding a way out, but when everyone ran to the front door of the villa, they found that the door was locked. It was also a sophisticated and sturdy fingerprint lock that only the owner of the villa could open. Just when everyone was still wondering what to do, a young man wearing glasses stood up. If we can't escape, why don't we introduce ourselves to everyone first? After all, someone will be kicked out at 6 o'clock today. Everyone looked at the young man adjusting his glasses. My name is Ichia, I am a good person. No one said anything, and the young man looked at me eating a burger next to me. I put down the burger I had just taken a bite of and wiped my mouth. My name is Haisa, a good person, that's it. Someone immediately asked, where did you get this burger? I shrugged, there's still a lot of food on the dining table over there. Ichia stood up and said, then let's eat something while introducing ourselves. The herd mentality of humans is vividly demonstrated in this game. Everyone took turns going to the dining table over there and introducing themselves. Without exception, they all didn't want to reveal too much information and only said that they were good people. When the big brother Hua Tai said that he was a good person, someone immediately questioned him. Stop pretending, with this appearance, he must be a gangster on the outside, how could he be a good person? Hua Tai was so worried that the veins on his forehead popped out. Don't talk nonsense, my card is a civilian. A high-pitched voice appeared. In my opinion, Hua Tai must be a wolf. We all just said that we were good people, but you directly said that you were a civilian, isn't that strange? I looked at the girl who was speaking and remembered that she had just introduced herself as Jiang Wei. Jiang Wei was wearing a white dress with long black hair. Just looking at her makes people extremely fond of her. Just her ID card. I squinted. That's right, I could see everyone's ID cards. Because I wasn't human. I was the Grim Reaper from hell. The girl who died tragically in this game had to pay with her soul in exchange for my revenge on the game organizer. So I deliberately let them drag me into this game. Hua Tai was finally voted out by everyone, even though he had taken out his civilian card. In a fit of rage, Hua Tai grabbed the knife on the table and swung it around, stabbing those who thought he was a wolf to death. Before the knife touched their bodies, Hua Tai's entire body was trembling, and he was punished by the organizers with an electric shock. The lowly voice on the TV rang out again. Warning, except for wolves that can kill at night, others are not allowed to harm others at will. After a pause, Lowly announced tonight's judgment. The chosen one will be eliminated immediately. In the next second, before Hua Tai could react, the ring on his wrist exploded. A living person suddenly exploded into bloody foam in front of everyone. The sky was filled with blood, spreading a deadly aura throughout the room. Some survivors were stunned, and some screamed. But I saw Hua Tai's dark soul stained with blood floating out. With such a dark soul, he is actually not a good person. Serves him right. After a brief moment of confusion, everyone gradually calmed down. Some people started to worry about what to do at night. Jia stood up again, calming down. Everyone, don't worry, wolves are just ordinary people among us, there's nothing to be afraid of. As long as everyone locked their doors, everything would be fine. A girl hesitantly made a suggestion. If I were a wolf, I would definitely attack the weak girls first. So can we arrange for men to protect the women? Before she could finish, a man immediately asked a question. When life and death are at stake, who cares if you're a man or a woman? We haven't even taken care of ourselves yet, how can we care about you? The two sides had a heated argument. In the end, Jia stepped in to resolve the conflict. Everyone, stop arguing, this method is not safe either. If the girl being protected is a wolf, wouldn't it be like a sheep in a tiger's mouth? Jia looked at the girl, right now, you can only trust yourself, so you should lock the door to protect yourself. The girl stopped talking. At 10 o'clock, everyone returned to their rooms. There was the sound of the door locking, and the sound of something heavy pressing on the door. The entire villa fell into deathly silence, except for the sound of Loli on the TV. It's getting dark, invite the werewolf to kill someone. As soon as the voice ended, there was a click, all the doors could not be locked no matter how tightly they were locked. Everyone fell silent. A series of footsteps echoed in the hallway and stopped in front of my room but did not enter. Could it be that there was a disagreement between the werewolves? I rubbed my hands excitedly in the waiting room, waiting for them to quickly enter. But when the door opened, the girl in the room next to me let out a shrill scream. Then there was the sound of something heavy falling to the ground. After a while, Loli's voice rang out again. After the werewolf kills someone, please return to your room. The prophet checks on everyone. A night passed. The girl who died was the girl who suggested that men should protect her during the day. During the day, most of the people gathered around the dining table had dark circles under their eyes and looked exhausted after not being able to sleep all night. Someone asked, "Who is the prophet? Can he lead the group?" Jia drank the coffee in his cup and calmly said, "Actually, I am a prophet." Under everyone's expectant gazes, Jia said with some regret, "It's just a pity that I didn't check for a werewolf last night. The person I checked was Hai Sa. She is a good person." I raised my eyebrows. Jia was not a prophet. He was a wolf. The real prophet, perhaps because he was afraid of being killed, or perhaps for some other reason, hid himself in the crowd and did not openly confront Jia. I slowly swallowed the bread in my mouth and glanced at the real prophet in the crowd. Then, I looked surprised. What a coincidence, right? Actually, I am also a prophet. Jia's expression changed. Everyone looked doubtful. Who is the real prophet? Jiang Wei looked at me. If you are a prophet, did you investigate last night? I nodded. I investigated you. You are a wolf. Jiang Wei was stunned, frowned and said, I don't know why you framed me, I'm a good person. These past 2 days I've been helping everyone wash the dishes, analyzing with everyone. Yesterday I even threw that wolf Hua Tai out. We're all women, why are you targeting me like this? Jiang Wei became more and more agitated as she spoke. Finally she put her head down on the table and started crying loudly, her shoulders shaking. Tears as big as beans flowed down her face and fell onto the plate with a light pop sound. A man stood up to comfort her. Jiang Wei, don't listen to this crazy woman's nonsense. I know you're a good person, you're so gentle and kind, how could you be a wolf? Jiang Wei immediately fell into the man's arms, sobbing and saying, Brother Qian, it's good that you trust me. I chuckled. This man's name was Qian Hu. He was so naive. Everyone suddenly lost their pillar and didn't know who to trust. Qian Hu angrily scolded me. In my opinion, this Hai Sa is a wolf, everyone can't trust her. Someone was quick-witted and immediately refuted. You're wrong. Jia said that he tested Hai Sa, so no matter who the real prophet is, Hai Sa is a good person, right? Everyone nodded after hearing this. Their reasoning fell into a deadlock again. Jia was still the first to break the atmosphere. Although I didn't test the wolf last night, I have a suspect, and that's him. Jia pointed at the man who had argued with the first victim yesterday. I suspect that he is holding a grudge and waiting for an opportunity to vent his anger. The man couldn't defend himself and shouted that he was innocent. But this guy couldn't come up with a counter-argument. In the end, most people chose to abstain, a few people followed Jia and voted for the man. There was an explosion, the man turned into a blood flower. In just 2 days, 3 people died in this villa. Everyone was in no mood for dinner and returned to their rooms, praying to survive another night. As the night fell, a familiar voice rang out again. It's getting dark, the werewolves should start killing. Footsteps echoed from the silent hallway. There were also cries of fear, pleas for mercy, and prayers. Creak, my room door was pushed open. I smirked at the person holding the knife in the dark. Little treasure, you're finally here. Her petite figure was hidden in the darkness, the wolf mask on her face reflecting silver light. I sat on the table, swinging my legs. Jiang Wei, are you tired of standing there? Do you want to sit down and rest? Jiang Wei's body trembled, her eyes calm, and she quickly rushed towards me with a knife. Go die. The moment she got close, I put both hands on the table and sprayed water at her. Pfft. I sprayed the coffee I had just drunk onto her face. Humph, you're about to die and you're still pretending like this. Jiang Wei took off her mask, wiped her eyes, and stabbed me with the knife. I smiled. When I fought the devil that year, you were just an embryo. I raised my hand and waved it. The knife spun in the air and stabbed into the table. Jiang Wei's eyes narrowed. I shook my legs and looked down at her lying on the ground. Originally, tonight, you guys had already negotiated that the one holding the knife would be Jia. But Dike Kiet has been gone for a long time and hasn't returned, so to be sure, I called you to help. I laughed. Aren't you curious where Dike Kiet went? Jiang Wei held the handle of the knife, a trace of doubt flashed in her alert eyes. Go and look under the bed over there. I smiled and pulled out the knife from the table and gave it to her. Don't worry, I won't attack you. You have to be alive for this game to be interesting. Jiang Wei glanced at me suspiciously, quickly grabbed the knife, then quickly lay down beside the bed, looking under it.
Ah!
She suddenly screamed and jumped up. A strong fishy smell rushed into my nose.
Ugh!
I frowned, my toes touching her chin. Hold on, don't throw up on my floor. Jiang Wei covered her mouth with her hand and looked at me with wide eyes filled with horror, as if she had seen some evil ghost. She suppressed the urge to vomit. I jumped down from the table and approached Jiang Wei step by step. Jiang Wei crazily retreated to the ground, her whole body trembling. I grinned. Family members should stay together. No, please. I want to live. Jiang Wei couldn't help but shed tears, because she was so scared that she couldn't even swing the knife. I leaned down and whispered in her ear, if you want to live, you have to listen to me. Only werewolves can move in the hallway at night. Move Jia's body to the door of the other werewolf. Then, do you understand? I held Jiang Wei's chin with one hand, and tucked her hair behind her ear with the other. As long as you listen to me, I guarantee you'll survive to the end. Jiang Wei nodded blankly, then raised her head and stared into my eyes. Hai Sa, I thought you had plastic surgery on your face, but now I realize how beautiful you are at such a close distance. I tossed my hair. Damn it, my charm can seduce both men and women. Early in the morning, everyone in the villa was awakened by a scream. Because someone discovered Ichie's body in front of Ma Zi's room. Everyone surrounded Ma Zi, but no one dared to approach him. Everyone was terrified and pointed at Ma Zi. You killed Ichie. Ma Zi immediately retorted, do you think I'm that stupid? I killed someone and left it in front of the door on purpose, aren't you afraid that you'll suspect me? Qianhu touched his not-so-smart big head, so, what exactly happened? No one answered. Qianhu carefully looked around at everyone, and finally his eyes fell on me. Hai Sha, aren't you a prophet? Then come out and say a few words, what do you think about this? I cleared my throat and looked regretful. First of all, I'm not a prophet, Ichie is the prophet. What I said yesterday was just to help Ichie, I didn't expect that. The crowd went crazy. That's right, our true prophet is dead, how can we play this game anymore? The true prophet, who always pretended to be smart, tried to speak hesitantly, but was frightened by my gaze and shrank back. Ma Zi sneered. Stop pretending, in my opinion, you and Ichie are both wolves. Yesterday, you wanted to drag a good person like Jiang Wei down, making us vote for her. Today, you stabbed your wolf companion to death and put it in front of my door to blame me. Ma Zi slammed the table, everyone, vote for Hai Sa. If we vote for her, we will win. Ma Zi's remarks were really powerful, turning all the contradictions towards me. Especially the last sentence, the strong temptation allowed him to convince many people. I ignored the questioning gazes of others and slowly took a sip of coffee. Qianhu suddenly stood up and rushed in front of me, this cunning wolf, we were fooled by you. Jiang Wei stopped him from speaking. I can prove that Hai Sa is innocent. Last night, Hai Sa and I were so scared that we slept together. Qianhu was stunned and stammered, so she also set a trap for you yesterday. Jiang Wei placed the bread and jam on a plate in front of me. Seeing me take a big bite, she smiled. That's what Hai Sa and I discussed. We deliberately staged such a play to help Ichie hide his identity. Qianhu's CPU burned out. Someone asked, so who is the real wolf? Jiang Wei looked at Ma Zi. After Ichie showed up yesterday, Hai Sha and I were very worried, so we kept an eye on Ichie's condition. But yesterday when we arrived at the door, we saw Ma Zi fiercely looking at Ichie, clearly seeing him as prey. As a result, Ichie died in front of Ma Zi's room today. Jiang Wei picked out a few more men and asked, you were all near Ma Zi's room. Did you hear any noise last night? Some of them looked as if they suddenly remembered. It seems like there was the sound of a door opening or something. And there was also the sound of a knife falling to the ground. I lowered my head to cover the corners of my lips that were curling up. Of course there was a sound. That was what I told Jiang Wei to deliberately create. It was to beat Ma Zi to death today.